It's a brand new day, Spider-Man will fly, parabolic bouncing up and down the sky. I think Spider-Man has the best run of movies in the MCU. Having Tom Holland's open-hearted haplessness at the center of the story mitigates, I think, a lot of the MCU's snarkier impulses. There's more of a mix between super people problems and normal people problems. It's a series that's eager to reinvent what a Spider-Man movie can be and unafraid to get kind of weird with it in the process. And, it's about Spider-Man, the best superhero. Brand New Day carries this torch with such confidence that you can't really even tell that this is the first entry not directed by John Watts. Probably because Chris McKenna and Eric Sommers once again wrote the screenplay. This time, Shang-Chi director Destin Daniel Cretton is taking the director's chair. Okay, it's been 4 years since Spider-Man No Way Home, in which, for reasons I no longer remember, Doctor Strange had to cast a spell that made everyone forget Peter Parker ever existed, most significantly, the love of his life, MJ. I really went into this expecting an endgame type conclusion to this problem, like he would find some magic doodad to help MJ remember him by the time the finale rolls around, or maybe he'd just tell her and the power of love would do the rest. Not only does this not happen, but the villain plays with that expectation in one of the most fucked up sequences in the entire MCU. Brand New Day digs far deeper into the consequences of that ending of the last movie than I ever dreamed it would try. It's not quite that Peter can't talk to MJ. We begin to realize that he won't. He's traumatized by Aunt May's death and doesn't want the same to happen to MJ, so he's just stepping back. The film begins with a heartbreaking montage in which Peter watches TikToks of MJ and his best friend Ned attending, enjoying, and graduating college without him. This is truly a post-COVID Peter Parker. His empathy for the world matched only by his reluctance to immerse himself within it. His excuses about not wanting his loved ones to get hurt sound like excuses from a man who watches the people he cares the most about on computer screens, afraid that it's already too late for him to be loved again, and maybe they're all better off without him anyway, so why even try? And the film shows with clear-eyed maturity that taking away MJ and Ned's ability to choose for themselves betrays kind of a lack of respect for them. He knows good and well that both of them thought their love for him was worth dying for, and selfishly refuses to give them the chance to rebuild that connection. It's interesting to make Peter's love for his loved ones a weakness in this particular way, but it feels apt. And so MJ and Ned live happily, but with a wistful sense that something important is missing, while Peter buries himself in work. Spider-Man work, that is. Peter doesn't seem to have a job. I'm not sure how he's affording the dusty Phantom of the Opera attic where he mopes around and fiddles with his webbing. Maybe the cops are paying him. They seem to be Spider-Man's only friends. When he's not fighting bad guys, he's high-fiving cops, telling cops they're the real heroes, listening to cop radio channels, being told by his cell phone cop buddy, you don't work so much, man. You gotta take care of yourself. Consulting Florence Pugh, super cop, for supervillain intelligence, having a guilt-ridden panic attack because a cop got a mild scrape on their forehead while he was fighting a villain, and protecting the Department of Damage Control, where cops rehabilitate supervillains. And if you think these secretive government guys seem a little shady, well, congratulations, you have seen action movies before. Or maybe you've just seen Tremel Tillman in Severance and know better than to ever trust anything that man says. Tillman sells his innocence this time around with a much more relaxed naturalism than Severance. There was one moment in particular where the script made it really clear that he was lying, even as I completely believed his performance. Everyone loves Spider-Man in this movie. J. Jonah Jameson is no longer a problem, nor does he appear in the movie. Maybe he had to sell his website to The Onion or something. This Spider-Man's been around a while now, and making his neighborhood so friendly to him allows us to really feel how beloved and important Spider-Man has become to New York. And it's fun to see his big-hearted energy try to squeeze itself into something professional as he bumbles around different people's offices. It's no wonder Peter wants to socially disappear into such an adored Spider-Man, even as he biologically struggles to keep Spider-Man at bay. He's going through some kind of spider-type late adolescence, which is dovetailing with his obvious depression, meaning his powers are going haywire and overwhelming him with feelings that he's been spending 4 years trying to repress. Feelings which you would better believe are going to bring him face to face with MJ, but not before clumsily ejaculating webbing out of his wrists, just like the second Peter he met in the third film. Peter is so committed to repressing these new, unpredictable power surges that he invents a powers-controlling gadget which every good guy in the movie warns him might be dangerous in the wrong hands. Peter tries to control his mental health in much the same way the new big villain controls the minds of, well, everyone else. The big baddie is a mystery for the first half or so of the movie. They can possess people, and the possession can hop from one person to another as the camera whip pans to keep up with thrilling urgency, because it's not clear where the baddie's actual body is or if they even have one. Peter can't really chase it for long, nor can he fight the people they possess too aggressively. Spider-Man hunting and being hunted by dozens of random people are the most memorably haunting set pieces of this movie, a weaponization of the very New Yorkers that Spider-Man devotes his life to saving. Beyond that, the villain, of course, needles their way into Peter's personal life in ways that are truly violating. It's honestly one of the coolest problems I've ever seen a superhero have to deal with, complete with a pretty cool discovery of the villain's limitations. It's not surprising to learn that this villain turns out to be a recognizable Marvel character who will likely be important in future Marvel movies. It is surprising to see the movie's uniquely young casting of this character, the way Peter's relationship with them evolves, and that this villain's backstory is able to climax with such intensity. They're attacking the Department of Damage Control to find something called VMAX, a something whose significance winds up being a gut punch as personal as it is devastating. I am happy to report that this movie is quite good looking for an MCU movie, at least as far as the brighter color palette goes. Things don't really get sludgy except for a few of the darker scenes. The shot compositions still range from functional to messy, and the action is CGI'd to hell and back, looking even more video gamey than usual because a lot of it is clearly inspired by the recent Spider-Man video games. And yet, the choreography is also wonderfully expressive. I wouldn't say I was ever feeling suspense, but the fights achieve a pleasantly propulsive flow state whose main purpose is to keep the good times rolling. Within the MCU style Bible, Cretton does find a lot of room for creativity. The villainous possession whip pans I've already mentioned. There are shots of Peter's eyes inside the mask as he reacts to the action. A jarringly liminal plunge into a key memory with Aunt May, which is replayed from a surprising perspective at a key moment. That being said, the MCU is basically the cinematic version of a sitcom. We aren't really here to see a grand directorial vision so much as perfectly cast actors riffing with scene partners that they have great chemistry with. The thing that has always distinguished the MCU from other blockbusters is the care it takes to pack their movies with as many specific little interpersonal character moments as possible. It's why they managed to stay so successful despite the fact that most of their villains and third act finales are quite bland. I barely remember the Age of Ultron despite having seen it twice, but I will never forget the scene where the Avengers get drunk and take turns trying to move Thor's hammer and Thor's face when Captain America does move it a little bit. Brand New Day is full of this stuff. Peter shows up to the Punisher's hideout unannounced and keeps tripping a ridiculous number of booby traps. Peter tracks down Bruce Banner and they both get adorably enthralled by some geeky science problem. The detective lady's kids get big excited grins whenever their mom refuses to confirm or deny if Spider-Man is calling her again. The dialogue has plenty of great jokes, but can be as blunt as a giant metal octopus arm slamming into your face. At one point, two nerds are quoting a very famous movie to each other and laughing at each other's, sort of doing the silly voice as they do quote it. And then after they laugh, one of the nerds goes, "Nice reference." Just I guess to make sure everyone knows that was a quote. There's a climactic exchange at one point in which someone says, "Who are you, Peter Parker or Spider-Man?" And he says, "Both." There are probably too many people in this 2.5 hour movie. You can have the Punisher or Black Widow or the Hulk, but throwing them all in there does bloat things. Although I guess cameo bloat is something of an MCU trademark at this point. Most of their scenes are pleasant enough on their own, but only the Punisher gets to feel like he really matters to this story, even if only to be the guy who keeps fucking everything up. He serves as a compellingly lonely warning to Peter about where his current life of solitude could end. Fortunately, John Bernthal is just one of those actors who makes everything he's in better no matter what the script is. Same with Florence Pugh and Mark Ruffalo, actually, which is probably why the bloat doesn't feel like as big of an issue as it otherwise might. Zendaya is amazing as MJ, as she's amazing in everything. Has there ever been a superstar as underutilized as Zendaya? I feel like she stands off to the side in all of the biggest movies, playing the part of some dude's conscience. I feel like I knew Kirsten Dunst's Mary Jane as deeply as I knew Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker, whereas Brand New Day only slightly pushes against the tradition of giving us an awesome MJ that I would really like to get to know. For much of the movie, Peter watches her from afar, but there is finally a great section near the end where they really start talking to each other, and it's incredible to see how subtly Zendaya can move the character through all these emotions in one scene. Anger, confusion, connection, remorse, sarcasm, kindness, all for a guy that the character does not know. And the pain of that distance is written all over her face throughout this whole emotional gamut. I just wish I knew a little more about her life outside of Peter, especially since the crux of their whole problem is that Peter is debating on whether to ask her to leave at least parts of her new life in pursuit of an old one she doesn't remember. Speaking of Peter, Tom Holland has never been better in these Spider-Man movies, or really his other movies for that matter, so I guess this is the best Tom Holland movie. This is Peter Parker at his most conflicted, and your enthusiasm for this big, bulky blockbuster will likely hinge on how deeply you connect to this performance. The film ends at a place that merely hints toward future life changes rather than breaking Peter out of his torpor completely. Peter instead has a cathartic internal change, motivated by a sequence in which he finally gets to be the mentor for once. Spider-Man is 30 years old. He's all grown up and dishing out advice, but he's still figuring things out. Support my work on Patreon. Support my work on Patreon. Support my work on Patreon. Oh boy.